Fellas, what's up?
What's up?
Hey,
What's up?
gentlemen.
Welcome, everyone. This is Chasing Rings. Thank you for joining us on another episode. Tonight, we are going to dig into probably one of the most controversial topics in college football over the last decade, at least, but probably longer. G's going to dig into what we think is a great proposal for how we could fix this playoff system that everybody seems to disagree on. You know, never the right teams and too many of these teams, and there should be fewer, there should be more. Well, G's going to fix this whole thing for us, and at the end of the night, everybody's going to be on one page. Said no one ever about the college football playoff system. Before we hop into that, however, you know how we do it here on Chasing Rings. We always have to start with,
wait, what?
G, start us off tonight.
So, in honor of fixing the playoffs, I was looking at some information about the Bowl Championship Series, the BCS, and here are a couple of things that I didn't know, and I imagine some folk out there may not know. There was a computer involved, but did you know they didn't use any advanced analytics? It was it was just a lot of your basic information, strength of schedule, what was the point scored, stuff like that. And the conference championship, you didn't get any extra points. It was just treated as a regular game in the computer.
Wow.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine an era that simply relied on that. But unfortunately, we are old enough to remember that. And we used to complain about it every single January. Big dude, what do you have for us tonight?
Make it better. Continuing on with the whole theme of the CFP, during the original CFP 4-team playoff, this is for context. So during the original 4-team CFP playoff era, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma, they took 69% of the bids. But did you know there were no 2-loss teams that ever made the field when CFP playoffs had only 4 teams?
Wait, what?
Yes.
Yeah, makes sense.
So,
I remember arguing about that.
So back to what we talked about whether, and I'm sure you'll talk about it more, about whether the regular season matters. It's an important thing to look at where we started at, where we're going, and what people are proposing, and how those things shape out from 4 teams. And if we went to 32, just how different that would be.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to stick in the same theme of playoffs and championships. Would you believe that a team once went 10-0, won their conference, which would be considered a power conference during that time period, outscored their opponents 275-0, did not allow a single point? Now, repeat myself, 10-0, won their conference championship, obviously, and did not allow a point. Did not win the national championship.
Ooh.
Wait, what?
Wow, who was that?
So this is Texas. This is considered Texas A&M, quote unquote, perfect season. In 1919, they were 10-0. Like I said, did not allow a point. But this kind of taps into what G was talking about, and really what you were talking about too, big dude, in terms of the evolution of the system. There was no official national champion at that time.
Wow.
A&M actually claimed that national title retroactively in 2012, which people still kind of frown on. But some voters voted for Harvard, who finished 9-0-1 that season and beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl, and others voted for the Illini, who finished 6-1, won the Big Ten, which was the Western Conference at that time. G mentioned that the other night in his way. So you had some people who, and it was regionally split. The Midwest and West people voted for Illinois. I shouldn't say voted; they declared Illinois the national champion, and the Northeastern people selected Harvard as the national champ. Texas A&M didn't get anything.
Man, and wait a minute, let me get this straight. The Carlisle boys and Jim Thorpe didn't get no love? Whoa.
Hey man, back even before, and I'll get into this before it became a national coordination because it did go from regional coordinations to a national coordination. It was still a coordination.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So that will do it for our wait what.
Wait, what?
Some really good ones tonight, fellas. As we jump into our news, more injury news, unfortunately, in the NFL. Not the Panthers tonight, G. Not the Panthers
Yeah.
for once. Left tackle Laramie Tunsil for the Commanders tore his triceps the other day, and that's going to leave a major hole, obviously, in the Washington offensive line. He's going to be out for at least 4 months. That's usually a 4 to 7 month recovery. So you can all do the math. You know, we're talking the end of the season. He will not be there to contribute, obviously, to the Commanders and their push to
And
try to
Daniels
dethrone the
I
Eagles.
would not be keeping him because he's on my fantasy. He's not a keeper anymore.
So are you saying that Jaden's going to get killed without his left tackle?
I'm saying that.
Well, you're celebrating over there, big dude. As soon as I said that, you started smiling. All you're thinking about is NFC East.
Hey, with Jalen Carter and all them guys, I'm not even worried. I wasn't worried to begin with. It's just going to get worse now.
Yeah, exactly.
Another injury, fortunately for Chicago, not as bad. Wide receiver Luther Burden, who was having a killer camp, apparently strained his groin, but he's projected to be ready in time for week 1 of the regular season, so he should be good to go. In other news in the NFL, Kyler Murray, surprise, surprise. Like we really thought J.J. McCarthy was going to be named the starting quarterback. Kyler Murray has been named the starter for Minnesota when they opened up their season on week 1. So congratulations to him. I do too. And I soon as he landed there, I figured that he would end up getting the starter's job. So like I said, not a surprise to anyone. Week 1 of the preseason begins on Thursday with the full slate of games, including what should be the debut for number 1 overall pick Fernando Mendoza. Our respective teams open on Saturday, Carolina at Buffalo, G, and then the Eagles play at Baltimore. And then the Eagles play at Baltimore. So our teams open Saturday. In college sports, the vote on the Protect College Sports Act, which I don't know about you guys. I'm so over this right now. If you're gonna do it, do it. If not, whatever. The vote has been pushed back now to mid-September. Makes absolutely no sense. They have plenty of time to get this straight if they were going to implement it for this upcoming season, but whatever. So since its creation, a few of the elements have been up for debate, but a final product has finally emerged that apparently sits well with all the stakeholders. Some of the key updates center around revenue sharing, NIL transparency, and recruiting. In terms of revenue, they set a strict limit on school payouts to players. They're pretty much trying to prevent schools from using secret partner deals to pay extra. And if you want an illustration of what that looks like, think about the NBA in this little pickle that Kawhi Leonard is in right now, where they cut these side deals with people. So they're trying to limit that. They set up something called the retention fund that basically provides institutions with a $22.5 million baseline for their budget. They can add up to $5 million more if the schools spend matching money on women's and Olympic sports.
Yeah,
so I know a lot of times it's just too. This set out to do one thing. Exactly. This whole Protect College Sports Act set out to do one thing and is trying to do 9 million things now.
Yeah.
This thing is just trying to cap these kids from getting banked. It
pretty much
gives them a lot of control.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it was, man. I mean, exploitation is supposed to be the whole spirit of what it is supposed to be capped, or any notion of exploitation with the agents amount the agents are charging and everybody else that's involved, you know. But they haven't gone farther. They keep creating other things.
Doesn't this make them employees now?
Yes.
Well, not according to the NCAA. The NCAA will never come up off that.
Yeah, that's BS. Yeah. I think at this point, if the schools are essentially paying directly and it's not a scholarship, and they claim the NIL, that's employment. Even if it's 10, what is it called? 10, not 1040. what is it called? Where you're pretty much a contractor and you get paid and then you just have to pay your taxes
Oh, yeah,
later.
1099ers.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's just that
Yeah.
type of employment, what that seems like to me.
Man, this
Yeah.
straight up W-2 employment, and it's been like that for a while now. They can say whatever they want to say. In terms
Like
of
Brewery
NIL,
got iced.
There
in
he
terms
is.
of NIL and transparency rules, this I do like. They're going to require official certification for sponsors, apparel brands, and
I like
media
that.
partners. This stops fake NIL deals, like I just mentioned the NBA example with Kawhi Leonard, so that people can't do this pay under the table type stuff, which I'm totally on board with that. How they're going to monitor that, good luck with that. But I also like the recruiting and tampering piece. Again, I don't know how you're going to monitor it, but that pretty much spells out that there's a ban on illegal cash offers to high school recruits. It gives schools new ways to stop other teams from stealing their current players. Again, I don't know how you monitor that. I can't wait to see what measures they will have to track that, because that's the reason it's a backdoor deal. Nobody knows that it happened. Nobody saw it happen. So we'll see what happens. In terms of conferences and scheduling, I really want you guys' input on this. So they want to put a conference cap basically on how many teams can be in a conference. So it stops the big athletic leagues, and they're talking about the Power Four, from growing past 19 schools.
Right.
So it blocks rich investors. I don't know. But it blocks rich investors from funding a separate league. They're trying to stop them from separating from everyone else. They probably figure the more teams they have, the higher the likelihood. But you're right, G. Why is 19 this magical number? The Big Ten already has 18, right?
That's right.
So we
and I
waiting
think
for Notre Dame, basically.
That's where it's headed. Notre Dame is probably gonna, at some point, I don't know who is going to push them to make that decision with the money that they're keeping to themselves right now, but I definitely see that. And the next component of that was media and rivalries. And this is an interesting one that is a little nebulous to me. They want to make joining a shared media group optional, right? So, typically, so they say that teams only have to keep playing their old rival games if they join that shared media group.
What?
So you kind of see why I say that's a little nebulous. I'm like, exactly what does that mean? So let's take. So they want to make joining a shared media group optional. And when I think of shared media groups, I'm thinking like ACC network, Big Ten network, SEC network, right?
Yeah.
So they're saying if teams want to keep playing old rival games, they can only do so if they join that shared media group. So what rivalry can we think of where they would be a part of different media groups now? So I guess maybe
Oklahoma, no.
No, because they're in the same.
Red River rivalry?
Yeah.
No, they're in the same conference now. Miami and Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Or Florida State and Florida.
Yeah, that would be right. That's a good example.
Oklahoma State, Oklahoma.
What is the media group that they would join?
Now that probably be a point of contention. So that's why I said it's nebulous. That one didn't make sense to me. So I'll be interested in getting some more information on that one. And then this last piece here is there have been some, and this is in just general news, there has been CFP expansion talks, of course, continuing. The committee continues to meet regarding future bracket expansions. And really the two main options are the 16 or 2014 formats. No one really can agree on those. And they're kind of comparing that to the 12-team model, which is a perfect segue into tonight's show, where G is going to break it all down and fix this entire thing by the time this is said and done.
That's right. You got
so we're gonna turn the rock over to you, G.
All right, I am going to solve it all. So when we get started, I want everybody, whether you're listening in your car or you're watching this on your TV or computer, whatever your thoughts are about the playoff, put those up in the corner and just have an open mind as I go through this. And I think it's going to serve you well. I'll say If you are watching the video, feel free to stop, go back, so you can kind of really think more deeply about something that you may not quite understand when I first go through it. That's the beauty. If you're listening, just go to our YouTube page. You'll see the video, and you can connect more with what I'm saying. So I just want to put that out there as we move forward. In preparing this, I realized that playoffs have never really been solely about determining a champion. And I'll give you some quick examples. I love the NFC South, but if the NFL playoffs were truly only about a champion, my Panthers wouldn't be in playoffs. They would not. March Madness, those now we have play-in games. The 6 teams, we look forward to seeing which 15 is going to break out. D2, D3, they have pretty deep playoff leagues. So it's never been solely about being a champion. And the FCS model, I loved it because I come from Appalachian State, and at that time it was D1 AA. But I love that model, and I'll tell you as we go forward. But the current FBS model, even at the 12, and I put up some of the bullet points relative to the current model, it's not solely about a champion. So let's get into it. Now, on some slides, I will touch on each point. Some slides, I will just hit certain points. And then there may be a few where they'll kind of be flybys. You'll see them, but there's really not a need for me to really go through it because a lot of it, those are just really supplementary. So in comparing or thinking about this system, I thought that there are 5 wins that need to happen if you address a playoff and a bowl system. So I'm not just thinking about this from a playoff perspective. I'm looking at the entire system, which is the season, the playoff, and the bowls, and trying to pull it all together with all interest. So one, the regular season has to matter. The second win is you're going to need 2 tiers, like a top 48. And there's going to be kind of a highway to the playoffs. And I'll get into a lot of that. And the reason why I put that there at 48, because there are certain realizations when it comes to the FBS. And some of the G6s have a hard time making 12. But so you'd have more if you had a 24. And I'll get more into that. And even if you had a 48, you can still see, if you use ESPN's process, you could, I think it went up to Toledo at 48 ranked in their particular rankings model. So you get more G6s actually being involved in the postseason, which I think is a good win. You can improve the bowl being, and I think that's one of the common complaints currently is that a lot of bowls don't have meaning. We have people sitting out, people being those who are draft eligible, and that's what they're thinking about. So I think with the model I'm going to propose, we're going to improve the bowl meanings. The timing issue, I've heard quite a bit concerns about, students and their academics. So with the model that I'm going to propose here, it's going to be a very, very tight model. You're going to be done after the first week in January. And I'll get more into that. But that timing issue seems to be really, really important. And the fifth thing is, again, big picture, we all have to win, whether you are a fan, whether you are a player, your institution, bowl committees, fans, whatnot. It needs to be wins all around.
Gee, before you continue, quick question for you on the 48. So in looking at that, your thinking is that it kind of quiets some of that noise from the G6s that get excluded currently by saying, hey, we're going down to the top 48 in the country, which will certainly there'll be more of those G6 teams that fall into that realm. Is that kind of your thinking there?
Oh, yeah, that is definitely my thinking. Okay. I mean, for the most part, if you're at a G6, what postseason do you have? Bahamas Bowl.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you have some you do have some of those bowls, but for the most part, and they don't get the attendance. And reading
Mhm.
and thinking about those bowls, they require packages. So a lot of times the schools are losing money on those.
Yeah,
Hmm.
So
like
long story, hmm,
that's like that year. You guys remember the year? I think it was UConn played Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl and
Yeah.
basically lost money on the whole thing to get everyone out there and to pay for the
yep,
trip and all of that.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. So the model that we're going to propose is just I'm being brutally honest as I look at the football bowl subdivision, and the reality is there are two divisions in it.
Yeah.
I mean, there are two subdivisions, subdivisions that are in it. That's just reality. So one of the things I want everyone to step back and look at, there have been always been a lot of interest in the structure of choosing a champion, and it's 90 years and counting. We had 62 years of AP polls, 15 with BCS, 10 with the CFP4, and now we're in our third year of CFP 12. And the year is going to go, I think, to 24. It's coming, whether you like it or not. It's
Yeah.
coming.
I agree.
Mm.
All right, and I'll get more into that. Okay, so
Okay.
now I think we have some baseline. I think you kind of see where I'm coming at this from, understanding just the realities of football bowl subdivision, football and bowl being operative words when it comes to this. So what I'm going to do is talk about the system itself briefly. Then I'll get into what the schedule might look like, what a season might look like and its meaning. Then we'll get into what we at Chasing Rings are calling winter wildness. We'll get into that, the playoffs. And then number six is really kind of using the 2024 bowl season. It's kind of an example of what it might look like, it being a season of playoffs in the bowl games because they're all connected. So number one, the system. There's six requirements, in my view, for a successful FBS playoff. And I've touched on some of this before, but what I want to really touch on here is the regular season is really going to be about a battle for seeds. And I'm going to explain that. There's always been a feeling of reward in the postseason. So even if it was pre BCS, it was all about the major bowl games. Even with the BCS, big part of that is in the title. BCS, the bowl system was important, and it remains to be that way. So the proposal is going to actually include all of that. And again, like I say, hate it or love it, the 24 is going to be next. I think we're going to skip 16. So let's
Hmm.
begin with where it all begins, and that's the regular season. And it is my belief that interleague play would be vitally important in this particular system, so you can do better interleague analyses. So I would think that if you are P4, at least two of your games should be with other your non-conference games should be with other P4s, and one should be with some of the best G6s that are available, and that could be based on how the G6s finish, and then just kind of looking at the G6s well as they come in. But that would be my thinking. And then the G6s, all of them would need to play some P4s as a first option, then the top G6s. And I think the benefits with this, and is what I started with, is interleague play is important right now. And this proposal makes it even more important because analytics are going to be associated with it, the advanced analytics. Because if I can create a thread through all of those 10 conferences plus UConn and Notre Dame as independents, that helps us making it a better evaluation. Nothing's 100%, but it would be better.
Gene,
So
quick question for you. Do you envision the G6s right now don't really have an official ranking system, there is something that tries to rank them.
Mhm.
Would you foresee under this proposal that the G6 would now start to have an official ranking system to feed into helping this move,
Mhm.
or do you think it will continue as is?
Yeah, with this proposal, it wouldn't be like a separate G6 ranking, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to it would just go up to like 50. And I'm going to get into this a little bit more, but there's one ranking of all the FBS teams, and there's some that are
Okay.
out there to show you, but
Okay.
that's what it would be.
And G, one other question too. I heard you mention Notre Dame and
Mhm.
the G6 and the G5. Do you think that you talked about interleague play, even though
Mhm.
Notre Dame's not a league? Do you think more should be based on them getting something from major independents? Would that have the same weight, or would that be something separate when you start talking about who's going to get that vaunted G6 playoff spot?
Well, part of my reasons for putting it this way is to hopefully force those jokers to get into a league.
Right,
It would be a hope, and for the big part of the evaluation, um, is gonna part of that will be the strength of their schedule and who they play and how well
right.
they. So to your point, yes, they're not in a conference, but there'll still be a way for them to be ranked because they're going to be playing all these different teams. So you'll still be able to make the analytics connection.
Got it.
Yeah, they'll definitely have to beef up that schedule in a system like this for sure.
Hmm.
Wait till you
Yeah, for
see
sure.
exactly how I think choosing the people to be in the playoffs go. What you're saying is going to make even more sense to the listeners and the viewers. So you all remember early in this presentation, I mentioned how I loved when it was Division 1A, AA, because
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
we have our playoff, you be at home. I'm a full believer we need to bring that in this particular instance. So imagine having your playoff, your prelims, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight. Imagine going to your home stadium or close to it to play that game. I think the level of excitement will be off the charts for that. The lower tier bowls, similar. I can think because App State, for example, would go to, I think is what's the bowl that's in Arkansas? I want to say is it a Mobile Bowl or Poinsettia Bowl? I can't remember because I've never gone. But I'll be candid with you. If it was played in Boone or played in Winston Salem or Greensboro or Charlotte, I might be inclined to go check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not going all the way. I think it's in Alabama to play a bowl. So I think for the lower tier bowls, the, the campus matters. Senior Bowl, I put it there, maybe not, but definitely for prelims, Sweet 16s, your Elite Eights in the playoff system, your lower tier bowls. If you look at the 2024 season by payout, there were 14 bowls who would be at the bottom, and you'll see what I mean as I move forward. But
Do
nevertheless,
the do the FCS D3 and D2, they play it that way all the way through to the chip, right?
they do.
And that's one of the
Oh,
big
okay.
advantages of the seeding. That's why I like your battle for seeds, because that regular season becomes so much more meaningful. Because wait a minute, I can host these games. It's like NFL playoffs, right? I want to get
Exactly.
this seed so I can host these
Yeah,
games and increase the probability that I can get to the Super Bowl or whatever the case may be. So okay, I
definitely. And
got you.
there's a financial reason for that too. I think most teams
Absolutely,
lose money on the
absolutely.
postseason. But if you can
Yep.
keep it
Right.
home and you can work that deal out, with the bowl people, you probably, I mean, there'll still be some going to lose money, but I think you'll
Mm-hmm.
have more that'll become either break even or profitable.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, I like the fact that y'all jump in, so it's just not me talking. So number 3, the season. So this this is what you and I were debating about. We're
Mm-hmm.
working our way through the season. So in this vision, 13 games over 5 months. You start the last week in August. The regular season ends the third week. whatever you want to do with that fourth week is up to you. But when the Wildness starts in December, come heck or high water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now within, but how do you even get to there? I mean, what is the because it's going to be this is a collaboration with the NCAA and the CFP because that's not going away. So it's really that type of collaboration. And so what they're going to have to do is make sure that whatever they do, recognize the regular seasons. They have ups and downs, and the teams can still be impacted. The one thing I like about this approach is that the season is basically over come January 1. I mean, the first week in January, you're done. Many, if not most, colleges have not started classes then. That'll be great. And there's some other good reasons for that. But the reality is, when it comes to the season itself, y'all remember who's in when the CFP4 first started. I don't know if y'all remember those commercials. Well, now we're talking about Battle of Seeds, and when we're going to get to that point, you're going to understand why I call it the Battle of Seeds. Now, this is one of those slides I'm going to take some time on to go through because I think this is really important to understand the importance of the regular season. And this is what you and I were debating, Guru, I think on our last show. So let me step back. 62 years of polls. That was purely regular season driven. And so it was whatever the APP personnel versus the UPI and the coaches poll, whatever they thought, that's your champion. So yes, your regular season blatantly mattered, but there was also a poll that was to be considered. So it wasn't solely about the regular season, if you think about it. Then you have 15 years of BCS. This is when strength of schedule was actually formalized from the research that I used to get here. So prior to then, yes, you had the polls, but the concept of strength of schedule wasn't formalized, but it was there. And this is where we get the whole, but we went through a gauntlet, SEC people. This is where y'all really started that mess.
Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
So there was a different preparation for the season. The season was still important, but it evolved. So now, yes, the polls are important, but now the basic computer analytics and like wins and losses was important, particularly the strength of schedule piece. So it changed a little bit, and it's not just about making sure that I do whatever I can do to be highest ranked in the poll. Now it's do whatever I can do to be high ranked in the poll. We also want the BCS computer, to run the numbers and have us high too that gets our ranking. Then we have 10 years of CFP4. This is where interleague play became really important. So again, the season is important. It's just important differently. It's just evolved. So now it's evolved to strength of schedule is important. The polls are still important. But now you have to have a strong non-conference schedule, and the head-to-head and common opponents become important. So now it's who you schedule becomes important. Again, the season mattered. It evolved. It just mattered differently. Then now we have the current evolution. It's going on 3 years of CFP 12. And this is what I frame it as the bump free battle. What does that mean? You have everything from the CFP 4, right? But now conference champions automatically get in and they get a bye. That's the Power Fours. That's new. So now one of your calculations is we need to win that championship. That's plan A, because that gives us guaranteed in and a guaranteed bye. Another, then you have this plan B is that if you don't win, you need to at least make it there because it counts. So on and so forth. You still got to have that strength of schedule. The non-conference matters. But the bump, your goal, you're telling your players, and this is primarily your power four teams, we can't fall below 10. We need to be 10 or better. Why? Because Notre Dame, if they have 12 and you are 11, they're going to jump you. Now you're 11, you move to 12, and the highest G6 automatically gets in. You're bumped out.
Right.
You,
Now, G, I have a question.
yeah.
It sounds great, like I said, because I think you're right. Eventually, we are going to have to get ready for 24, and it looks like you have them on both. Now, the one thing I noticed, unless I missed it, is now these discussions in the last committee talked about these playing games. 20 teams and number 13 through, I should say, 16 teams,
Mhm.
and 13 through 16 as playing games. What do you think that should be for playing games, or do you think playing games are more important for Power Four than they are G6? Because maybe Power Four has a reason to have them. Maybe G6, you either make it or you don't. Or do you give a lot of people chances to get in when you start going toward the 24 number that you're talking about?
Well, yeah. So basically, that's just a pit stop to 24, where they're just because
Mm-hmm.
there are enough people in different places, enough campuses. There's probably bold people. There's probably the media money. They don't want to rock the boat. When it comes to business, they like consistency. They love to the degree that they can be able to predict. And so they can't predict what's going to happen if you go to 16 or even 24. So that's why you got some of the. But one thing we know is that when you went from BCS to 12, people prefer 12 over the BCS. So we have history of what the evolution is. So to address the second part, the G6, and I'll get to this closer to the end. The G6 is in a precarious position because it becomes I think a skill and how in the mental game it's just different. I think a lot of the physicality or the physical gifts are probably similar, but how you play the game just differs that much between a G6 institution and the PF and the P4 teams. So I don't know if a play-in game is going to really help them in any way in the current model.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. And I understand. It's just a matter of doing something across the bridge to get to 24. That's what that was going to be my question. Was there anything else in that? It's a new excitement with G6. I actually like the way the G6 could look, and maybe G6 could have something that is something that's a pilot for play in. I think that might not be a bad thing to look at.
I mean, hey, a bridge can happen. I'm of the view, you're going to 24. We already know it works because FCS is doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, why? Why even take the pit stop? Just work out the numbers, work your media deals, work your bowl deals, and make it happen. There's something they can do if they want it. Because if
Gotcha.
they didn't want it, we wouldn't be at 12 right now. So it could be done.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the Battle of the Seas come in. 24 team playoffs, and it's plural intentional because in this model there's a CFP playoff and there's a NCAA playoff. And again, the purpose of this is really trying to give the G6 teams, more G6 teams, an opportunity at a really quality postseason. So as you can see, 1 through 4, I already talked about those, and those are still going to be involved. Polling is still involved, analytics, the P4 championship champions, all that is still involved. Interleague players involved. The difference here is advanced analytics, and I'll get into that. And so what does this mean for the season and the importance of the season in addition to those 5 things? Every team, P4 and G6 in this model, they're going to have 4 plans in their minds. Plan A is I need to be in the top 8. because that's going to guarantee me a bye. You want to be there. Plan B is, okay, if we don't get in the top 8, like if you're in the SEC, you're in the Big Ten, so Alabama, Penn State is like, yeah, we want to win, and we need to make sure that we are rolling these teams. So even if we don't make it to the championship or we lose, we're going to be in the top 9 through 16, because that way you're going to have an easier prelim opponent. It's literally coming down to math, and you're still having to bust your butt during the season to manage all of these data points and impress so you can get the highest seed possible. And plan C, go ahead.
Those buys are going to be, that's going to be tough. That's going to create a frenzy, I think, to vie for those 8 spots for sure. That'll be extremely interesting. That would be extremely interesting.
I think so too. I'm biased. So plan C, this is 17 to 24, and I'm going to be honest. I'm a product of the G6, segment of the FBS, and I'm always wanting to see App State be in the top 24. So I don't expect them to go to be a 16 or anything like that. But if we can get in the top 24, that means that we'll be able to go into a playoff. Or even currently with the CFP 12, if we can be the highest ranked G6 team, then we'll get to go to the CFP playoff. That's going to be the thinking of particularly a lot of G6s. We need to be in that 24. And we're thankful if we can get to a 16, but realistically, we need to be in that 24. And then what's also happening with 17 to 24, there are teams who are actually playing very well at the end of the season, and they may have 2 losses, but they were playing well enough that now they get to continue that into the season, and more than likely they're going to be in that 17, 16, 15 to 24 range, more than likely.
Gee, isn't this almost like, and maybe I'm looking at it wrong, is it almost like a hybrid break-off? And what I mean is, at one point, the 1AA was created, right? Which is now the FCS. So at some point, they broke off. Right. I don't know when they did. But isn't this almost a hybrid break-off with the G6 teams? It's like you can go to your G6 NCAA postseason situation, but you're not resigned to that. You also have a shot at the brass ring, right? Is that
pretty much?
Is that safe to say? Okay.
Oh, it is very safe to say, because part of this is recognizing that if you're at 24, there will be some G6s who will make it in that top 24, and they'll probably be playing. Well, they probably wouldn't be able to play them. They'll be playing some of the 9 through 16s and see if they can actually make it through. But the point is, it does give an opportunity, since it is the Football Bowl subdivision, that how do you make it inclusive of the G6? So that's one of the considerations. And if anybody who's listening or watching this saying that that's not important, well, we already consider it right now in CFP 12. But you may not like it, but my whole point is to say is that if it's the Football Bowl subdivision, you have to figure out as fair a way as possible to give G6s an opportunity to go for the brass ring. Okay.
Do you think you might see more G6 teams try to move into better conferences as a result of something like this? Like, we saw James Madison's move. I mean, James Madison went from FCS to FBS, but then has moved conferences a few times. App State did the same thing. Do you think we'll see more teams try to make that jump to kind of position themselves to have the aesthetic of being a more competitive program, to have a greater likelihood of getting into this top 24 CFP?
That's a good point.
I think what will first happen is, an influx of money will probably happen at those levels, so that they can actually bring in, better players before some may make a jump. And honestly, I can probably see it helping more of a Pac-12. I can actually see it helping them become P5, a Power 5 again at
Yep.
some point.
I was just thinking that them moving to become a Power 5 conference, or really
Yeah,
returning to becoming a power conference.
I think it would have benefited them the most based on the question that you just asked. But still, I think the other G6s, they'll probably receive a lot more funding because the stakes are higher now.
Yeah, and I could definitely see the landscape of football changing too at those institutions because, especially alumni who were big football people saying, whoa, wait a minute, now we have a chance to raise the profile. I'm going to contribute some dollars here. They become bigger players in this whole NIL landscape. And, you can see the arms race start to develop. Now we want a practice facility. Now we want a new stadium, so on and so forth. Okay.
Yeah, and would it also put teams like Stanford, in a position to perhaps come back to where they think they belong? Can they keep these long trips and all those other things going? Because it looks like they're becoming more of a G6 type of team. That's the academic school. They used to be able to have it all and want it all, but it just seems like that they may have to go back to that landing spot, or anybody else that wants to come back to the Big 12. I mean, to the Pac-12.
It could, and actually, Steph, I'm going to get back to that because that's coming a little later. But the other thing I was going to say is that even with the NCAA playoff, which would be those teams ranked from 25 to 48, one, they're still receiving eyeballs. If you are a G6, and especially if you can go in and win against a Power 4, particularly if they're from the Big 10 or they're from the SEC. I mean, no diss to the ACC and Big 12, but that's just kind of where it is right now. That's going to raise their stature because when you get to the next season, all the analysts are going to be looking at how did things flow in the NCAA playoff as well, and making those interleague connections. And even in some of those Power 4s who are in that 25 to 48, they're also going to get some additional benefit as well. And I'm going to get to that a little later. But I want to close this slide out by also noting that a lot of times when we think about the season and we think about meaning, I'll be candid with you. We think about the Big 10 and the SEC. For the most part, we think of those as gauntlet conferences, but more so the SEC has the bigger, I guess if I call gauntlet a nickname, it's probably more of an SEC nickname. But nevertheless, that's where we are now. Because if you're in the ACC, the Big 12, or the G6, Plan C, if you are the conference runner-up, which you most likely would not be in the CFP 12, and you're in the ACC or the Big 12 or even the G6, you're cool with Plan C. Right? If you are G6,
creates more possibilities. Creates more possibilities. You don't feel like it's become Big 10, SEC dominated, ACC trying to creep up, but it's going to be SEC, Big 10 dominated. And I know that there were some comments on our last show about why we had so many SEC teams, but that SEC and Big 10 is kind of where it is right now. I mean, you could make an argument certainly to go deeper into the Big 10, but it's not quite there yet. And I think that it will get there. I think that the SEC, based on its reputation, they probably dig a little bit further down into the league for playoff teams than maybe they will be moving forward. But that's just what it's been. No matter what your rooting interest is, there's no other way around that, and the question I pose is, well, who do you put in lieu of that? Like, who would have been in the playoffs?
Right.
Right. And I think the SEC and Big Ten, they're not on the same page with whether they should go to 24. I mean, from
Right.
what all the stuff I've seen, SEC is not too sure about going to 24. The Big Ten says, okay, we're the big dogs. We had the 3 last national championship. Why don't you all jump on board with us and let's see how we can do this? So I guess that's the question about it. When you have both of these different championships, is the one championship, the G6, is it possible that could take away any of the shine for for the Power Four
Well,
playoffs?
right now
and
with this
everything?
model, there isn't a separate G6.
Right,
So kind of look at it like college basketball, where there is, there's March Madness, and then there is the National Invitational Tournament.
right.
Even though the difference is this is going to be purely based off of an analytical formula, which I'm going to get to, I think, in the next slide or 2 slides now. So this
Okay.
is a little different
That's
than
a good
that.
clarification, G, because I was thinking the same thing that big dude just said. I was looking at it like the G6 tournament, but
Mhm.
it's not just the G6 tournament. It will be some of those, because if you're thinking about the top 48 teams in the country, there will be some power conference teams in
Mhm.
this NCAA thing, correct?
There will be, yeah,
Okay.
there will be.
Okay.
And even
'Cause
with
I was-
March Madness, if you think about the field, there's a whole lot of Power 5 teams that actually get automatic bids because they won their championship.
Yeah. And then we've seen some in the play-in games. I mean,
We've seen
so
some,
okay.
yep.
Yeah, I was
Yep.
thinking along the same lines as Big Dude. I'm glad you brought that up, Big Dude, because I was thinking the same. I was looking at it through the same lens, like, well, it's just a G6 tournament,
Right,
but
right.
it's not just an opportunity for G6. It doesn't give G6 all of a sudden carte blanche to playoff spots. You still have to
Basically.
maneuver and, like you said, battle for seeds, and the regular season
Mhm.
matters. You still have to be within those rankings. And again, we go back to the power conferences. They typically dominate. We could probably go 30 deep into the rankings. They tend to dominate those rankings. That's when
They
you get
do.
into our lower tier programs. So this will be extremely interesting to see if the G6s can jump up
Mhm.
and claim a majority of those spots. That would be very interesting to see how that would evolve over time.
Yeah, and I think that Plan D, many if not most G6s, that's gonna, at least early on, that's gonna be okay, y'all. We need to make sure that we can get as many 25s to 48s, so we can get in the NCAA playoff. Because here's the other piece: because when they're in the NCAA playoff, they being G6s, they're playing against P4s. Some of them are going to beat these P4s.
Mm-hmm.
And then that increases that team's their stature. That can also increase their conference's stature.
And I think too, you mentioned something earlier on about the G6 having to schedule these P4s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it gives them even more impetus to add these P4s to their schedule, because you're trying to get these points, right? You're trying to build up these points so you can get a higher ranking. And again, the goal is to win that CFP. But certainly, even if you just miss, you want to be one of the higher ranked teams in the NCAA.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that's kind of in the middle of the road on all this is the fact that the conference is trying to require MP for them to play actually more conference games. So
that's
not
right.
as much as that's the only thing that's kind of in the middle of that. So I think that would be one other thing that would be considered. But I think that this would be a way to not just say, here's a slot for the junior varsity, but
basically,
this is
that's
how
a good
we
way
get there.
But you can get those other teams too, though, I'm thinking. So, right, I think we just said earlier, the Big Ten's got 18, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you guys play 9 conference games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, those other 9 teams have to play somebody.
Exactly.
So that gives you might not be playing Ohio State, Indiana, Penn State, Oregon, but maybe you're playing Purdue and Northwest. You're still playing teams that are considered to be competing in the top conference. So there's
Exactly.
still going to get points there, regardless of what we might think about those lower echelon programs. So there's a lot
Exactly.
to really think about. I was also thinking, G, if you have this separate NCAA playoff, where
Hmm.
media rights come into play, because
Yeah.
you are going to have some power conference teams in this playoff. So they're going to want to show these games, because I'm thinking, you have to dig to find the FCS playoff games, D2,
Hmm.
D3. And a lot of times D2, D3, they're already in the semifinals or the championship
Right.
game before you even see that it's on.
Right.
FCS has done a little bit of a better job, but it's
I've
usually
actually been
competing
catching
against
them.
something else. FCS
Right.
is competing against something else in those early rounds.
True.
So it'd be interesting to see, something like this takes off, where the media rights would come into play, because that's a golden opportunity.
Almost definitely. And but I'm confident they'll work it out. So
Oh,
they being
always,
the money
always.
managers, they'll work it out.
The the money always works itself out, especially in
Oh
college
yeah.
sports.
Oh
Yes,
yeah.
it is.
Now something I was gonna say about the G6 before I moved on. Oh, so the G6 teams, it's going the P4 part of the analytics will be how solid were the G6 teams that you played.
Hmm.
And so you're going to be, so when you're looking to schedule G6s, you're going to want to schedule the tougher ones as you're able to do. And if from the P6, I mean, the G6's perspective, they're going to be doing the same thing, because now I say Appalachian State, we're in the Sun Belt. So, okay, you're playing the Sun Belt, but who are the P4s that you played? How strong was their schedule? Blah, 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 blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah. Who did they beat? So on and so forth. Who did they lose to? All that becomes a part of the advanced analytics. And so you can get that stream, or that consistent stream between all 136. That's the hope.
Definitely beneficial for the G6s, because the P4s have a longer body of work in terms of who the big boys are, right? I think it
Mm-hmm.
becomes a little bit tough for the P4s to schedule those top G6
G6s,
teams,
yeah.
because it seems we don't have history on, like, we don't have, okay, this team's been dominant for the last 10 years as a
Right,
G6 team. It seems like somebody else is always stepping up. So
right.
definitely a lot of more benefit to me for the G6 playing that interleague versus the Power Four. I shouldn't say interleague, but G6 P4 matchups. More beneficial
Well,
for the
yeah,
G6
the
teams right
reality is
now.
if you step back and you're saying this is for the FBS, you realize you're making some allowance for the G6s and just the kind of realities of the G6. And we know that
Mm-hmm.
piece is there. So this is kind of, y'all remember the road to the Final Four. So when you're actually picking the playoffs, well, highway to the playoffs is what we're doing here. And so remember, I said that the CFP, NCAA, in terms of the NCAA, the CFP is not controlled by the NCAA. So the NCAA would actually control that. I think March Madness is controlled by the NCAA, but I
It
don't think
is.
NIT is.
It is.
So this
Yep.
will be, so in terms of the NCAA playoff process and all of that, is controlled, but both the CFP and the NCAA are pulling from a central ranking, which is, this poll of polls, the basic box score analysis, strength of schedule. That's really kind of what the BCS poll was, and to some degree the CFP. But we're going to add more advanced analytics in the process that I envision here, and you expand that official ranking all the way up to 48 or 50. Honestly, I would expand it to 50 just so you can have arguments about who should be 49, who should be 48. So I would expand it all the way up to 50. And I gave you two examples here where ESPN ranks all FBS teams currently, and so does CBS Sports. So there are some organizations that are already doing that long ranking. but what would it actually look like? And so, and I admit my bias for numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I honestly think this is probably the best way to do it because I believe in numbers. So first is the advanced analytics, and this is why the interleague play is critical. I would have that as 50% of a ranking. Then the basic analyses, kind of the box score stuff, strength of schedule, margin of victory, those type of, basic fundamental analyses, 30% of the ranking, and then the poll of polls, which would be 20% of the ranking. You add that all up and you get where you're ranked from 1 to 50. So the thing I want to really touch on additionally on the selection process is, and I reiterate this, I'm going to reiterate this several times, there is a legit disparity between P4s and G6s, and I understand that. That's why the interleague play has to happen in this model. So you can actually use those advanced analytics and to some degree, some of the basic analyses. And then, of course, the polls, they're going to always pull in some G6s because they're doing it now. So with the selection process, this is where I said I was going to start getting back to the bowls. So there are 2 playoffs, but they're going to be connected to, if you use my example is the 2024 bowl season. So they would have been attached to 28 bowls to make them meaningful. And that's the whole winter wildness process. Now, one of the things I do recommend, and I said it before, and I'm going to say it again, the 9 playoff incorporated games, the prelims, the Sweet 16, the Elite 8 on campus or close to campus. Here's another thing that makes the bowl games, because there's a concern about people not playing, right? I truly believe that there's a way that the NFL or CFL can collaborate with these bowls and make them more like showcase bowls for those declared players, for those in non-playoff bowls, for those juniors and seniors that, that may, obviously the juniors won't be in the senior bowl, but then not all seniors play in the senior bowl. But you have to make it tightly controlled where they can have some FaceTime interview of some sort with these players. And I'll get more into why I believe that. But that connection can help make those bowls a lot more meaningful as they become professional showcase games. So what would the process look like? So this is, if you step back and you looked at your season, and now we're saying what's happening with the postseason. So remember, last week in August to the 3rd week in November, that's your regular season schedule. Week 4, it could be conference championships, Battle for the Seas, which is the regular season that has happened. Now the 4th week in November, highway to the playoffs. That's your selection show for CFP playoff, NCAA playoff. The next week, week 1 in December, Winter Wildness begins. So that's where your prelims are. Second week, this is where your Sweet 16s are. So that's both CFP, NCAA. Week 3, both Elite 8s are played, and those are all on campus. But also week 3 is where the bowls start. So the lower CFP, basically the losers. If you lost in week 1, you're gonna play your bowl in week 3. If you lost in week 2, you're gonna play your bowl in week 4. If you lost in week 3, you're gonna play your bowl in week 4. So it's moving. And then the first week in January, if you lost your Final Four, you get to play your bowl game here. Then you have the NCAA champ. That's going to have championship, the CFP championship, and you can have the Senior Bowl here as well. So what does that actually look like, though, in practice? Well, how might that look in practice? Oh, okay. I missed these 2, so forgive me on this, Guru. I'm not going to mess with it at this point. So long story short, what happens is, see, it went from Matt to PC. So long story short, there's 16 bowls for the prelims. For the Sweet 16, that's 16 bowls. And then you can do the Senior Bowl. Then the Elite 8, that's essentially 5 bowls. And then for these are where the New Year's Sixes start coming in. As you can see, the Final Four teams will be a New Year Six, essentially the Elite Eight losers, the Final Four losers, then the NCAA champ. Those will all be the top 6 bowls. And let me give you a visual so you can kind of have an idea of what this would look like. So I'm going to have to move my cursor here. So you played the prelims, the NCAA prelims. You lost. You're going to go to these bowls. And so this is the second tier of bowls. And this is like the lowest tier, which is like $1 million payout, because I did it by payout. If you're in the CP prelims and you lose, you're going to go to these 4 bowls. So now you're in the Sweet 16. If you're in the NCAA, you're going to get a $2 million bowl, essentially. And if you are with the CFP, you're going to be at the top of the second tier bowls. So now you get on to the Elite 8. If you lose the Elite 8, you're going to get one of these better. If you look at the lower 2 tier or in the mid, this is the higher mid section of the mid tier or tier 2. You're going to get that. But the Elite 8 losers, they'll get a Rose or a Peach Bowl in this particular example. So we'll get to go to a New Year's Six. So now you're down to the Final Four. In the Final Fours, if you're in the NCAA, you're going to get the highest, I said second tier in the middle. So it's kind of that middle of the second tier. You're going to get the highest one. And the losers of the Final Four will play in the third highest. For the CFP in the Final Four, you're going to get each a New Year's Six game, and they'll win. But the losers will go to a different New Year's Six game. Well, so with this model, like currently, you can actually win 2 New Year's Six bowls right now. With this model, you can only win 1.
So, and this is where I'm big questioning you on this.
Mm-hmm.
Is the reason they're going to a bowl game after getting eliminated from their respective playoff to preserve the bowl system?
Right.
It's to improve on the bowl system, because now the bowls are going to become more like showcase games, as well as to give the G6s, as well as I guess when you get beyond the 8, an opportunity at an actual bowl. So you want to, so you're creating a playoff and you're trying to preserve at least the top 28 bowls in this example.
Do you think that we might suffer from what we've been getting the last several years in terms of the players who have high draft prospects opting out and kind of lowering the level of those bowls? Or like, what do you see the quality of those bowls being?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that. Let me see. So I'm going to get to that in 2 slides. I'll get back to that. But I will tell you one thing is that, yes, if you don't use one of the pieces that I think is important to this, and I'm going to get to it, then you're going to still have people like some of the better players who have NFL prospects. You're going to see them not playing. Yeah, we want to encourage them to play. So, but this is kind of how it might play out. And if you just really want to take it, this is for those people who are watching. You want to take the time to really look at, in using a 24-25 season example, what it would look like by week. You can. I'm not going to go through all of those here. So if you're on audio, make sure you check the video out and you'll see those. So I'm about to wrap this up. So I realized that there are 3 more wins, but there's also a possible loss in this process. So the 3 wins, I talked about campuses and I talked about the lower 14 bowls. That is a win that I didn't mention in the first 5. The portal itself, we have a lot of concerns about the portal and when coaches can leave. Well, the portal opens the second week in January, and coaches can leave the second week in January or thereafter because it's done the first week in January. It being the entire season. Now, this third one I think is really important. If you can allow or create a process where NFL and if CFL scouts are able to want to, where they can do their interviews during the game, and that is not a part of a combine because honestly it doesn't do anything. It's interesting, but prediction wise, in terms of how you perform on the field, and that the Wonderlic test means nothing at all. And I think private workouts are almost useless because it's not in game. But so there's a way within the bowl process that these scouts or teams are able to interview players and you tightly control it, then I think you will have more those who are what do you call it? The ones who plan to go to the league, you might have more than playing, but as long as this weighs a lot in the consideration. So that would be one of the keys, I think, to make this work. At least from the bowl perspective. Playoff perspective is going to be fine.
Gee, I just had a quick question. Now, I after somebody loses, and I guess the example was Notre Dame. I hate to keep doing that to them, even though I really don't hate to keep doing it to them.
Keep doing it to them.
Yeah, some of these teams obviously, they're not going to want to participate after being being sore losers and all that. What's in it for those teams that, what are they offered other than what else they're doing? They don't want to come back after all this. They, like you said, they see their season over with by January 1st. What is it, the biggest thing that they're offered to get them to come back? Are they going to try to opt out of those games that you mentioned?
Well, I mean, of course, there can be some who would, but my gut says 2 things: is that when they go to these bowls, there's money that flows back into the system. It'll probably find its way to some of them. I wouldn't be surprised with NIL if they've done it properly. I mean, they can just do periodic NIL deals. You don't have to have a whole season, but if they know you're going to a bowl, some company might reach out and be like, okay, let's do some endorsements, and now you got commercials going. So there are ways in which it can be beneficial, but I think that I plan on going into the draft. I really think being able to have that face-to-face interviews, if you connect this with the NFL, just like how the Big 12 is working with the NFL in different ways, but if you can make a bowl system that works with the NFL, allows these interviews, allows the scouts to be able to see in real time, the interleague play will be really, really important when they're watching them, and that becomes a part of their evaluation. I think that more of those who declare for the draft actually play.
Gotcha.
But there is honestly, I don't know. I know one thing: bowls aren't going anywhere. So the question is, how do we get the players to play, the best players to play?
Right,
and that's what I was thinking about.
At this point, it just sounds like almost everything is on whether somebody gets 6 wins to get in the bowl. Something has to change about that. The fact that somebody has a 6-week season, six win season, and call it a successful season, and have somewhere nice to go. It's like going to Disney World and you haven't done nothing. So that's that's what needs to be preserved.
Likely, if you lose 6 games, you're not going to be in this 28.
Right? No. Win 6. Some people think they win 6 and even go 6-6.
That'll be out the window now, though. That would be out the window now.
Yeah, that would be out the window with this process. Now they may
Okay,
go to some of those lower 14 games and they can just play those on campus. But for this one, yeah, they'd be locked out of that.
got you.
I mean, I'm trying to look at some rationale on why I would do this bowl game. I mean, there is revenue sharing now, which a lot of people don't know. In
Yeah,
terms of this new NIL environment, there is some revenue sharing, so that
yep.
could be an incentive. But I'm with Big Dude. I have a hard time imagining I just took a tough L in a quarterfinal game to get up to go play a meaningless bowl game now.
Well, so here's the thing: there are not every person who declares for the draft didn't play in bowl games. You had a lot of them who didn't. Don't get me wrong, and you
Hmm.
may still have some in this one. But I truly believe that. I mean, I didn't think about the revenue sharing point, but that like specific bowl related NIL and an opportunity where you can have special interviews speaking with teams, and teams are actually NFL teams or CFL teams. They're actually using the bowl to evaluate you. I think more of them will play.
I
I
think if
can't
they
say
could get
all.
away from maybe that bowl branding in that term to showcase, I do like the showcase term you used.
Hmm.
Um, that might be an angle with it, but I have to get the traditional bowl game out of my head. If you say, "Oh, it's the orange," and it's almost like maybe it's, "Hey, you've been invited to the Orange Bowl showcase, Oklahoma. Your team has an opportunity to be in front of 32 scouts and personalized interviews, and maybe there's branding
Maybe.
consultants, and you have to package it a certain
Right.
way to make it more attractive than going out and playing a game. Um,
I think it has to
that
have consequences. Is kind of what you're
yeah,
getting to. Because if you
yeah.
don't play and there's revenue sharing, you miss that loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If there's an opportunity to have some FaceTime, and we know interviews actually mean a lot in the NFL, and I imagine the same thing for the CFL, but you don't have
Mm-hmm.
that opportunity, you miss out on that. NIL is important, and the media is going to show these games regardless, but you're going to miss the NIL loop.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes more of a carrot that you put in front of them. Because if they don't take it, then there are three carrots that they can lose.
When's the Senior Bowl take place again? Because I'm thinking maybe if that becomes you participate in this game to get your ticket to the Senior Bowl, but maybe that's already gone by the board at that point.
Well, yeah, because I think typically the Senior Bowl is for a lot of those seniors who, really weren't necessarily going to like some of the major bowls. They went in the CFP, so then this is where they play.
But I'm saying you make it more of a think you change that Senior Bowl thing to, like, you might have some who got an invitation, but you're like, okay, there are X number of invitations left to the Senior Bowl, and to participate, you need to, or to get one, you need to participate in this Orange Bowl runner-up situation
Well,
to
that's
be
not a bad
eligible.
idea.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just thinking of value. These extra
Mhm.
games, I've done my playoffs. I'm eliminated. Now I have these extra games that are being put out there, and I'm just trying to think of what's going to make me want to play. And then
Mhm.
what am I going to, it's got to be a very selfish, what am I going to get out of this as a program, as an institution, as a player,
Mhm.
etc.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that for the Senior Bowl, a lot of those people who play in the lower 14 bowls, basically the bottom 14 bowls, a lot of them will probably be the ones playing in the Senior Bowl, and it's probably the best of the seniors at that
Mm-hmm.
level, and maybe from the prelims might play in a Senior Bowl. But I
Mm-hmm.
like that idea of like if you played in these bowls, then you can play in a Senior Bowl. Interesting
Mm-hmm.
idea.
Yeah, interesting though.
So the good thing about this is, I mean, I don't. This is just a model that I came up with. I mean, I think it can be tweaked because just your example, Guru, I hadn't thought about revenue sharing and eventually making the Senior Bowl more of a if-then type thing, and it's a true reward for that extra play, the extra evaluation, the talk with scouts, have an interview. I didn't think about that, so that's why you need a lot of eyes on these types of things. But I'm gonna start winding it down. There is a one loss, I think, and we can't get away from the reality of the group of 6. Well, I think some could take this process and move up, mainly those who might be in the Pac-12, maybe the tops in the other 5 leagues. They might be able to, over time, eventually become part of the Pac-12. But it actually may be fair to just say, hey, we know y'all are different. We got a P4 CFP, we got a G6 NCAA, but we're gonna still do the national ranking the same way. And if a G6 gets in the top 24, you can play in the CFP because you're not really bumping anybody. You're just better than some of the other ones. And that actually might be the fairest way to go. What was that for?
You know my struggle in our past conversations with these G6 teams,
Mm-hmm.
and especially I had mentioned specifically when we did our predictions for our 12-team field, I had left the G6 team out, totally forgetting about the automatic bid because I just didn't think there was one that was deserving of it, and I put one in just because there's a spot for them, but. Yeah, I think I'd be more of an advocate for them separating at this point. Like, get some into some of these conferences. I would love to see some of the conferences build themselves up. I like what some of the mid-tier and lower conferences have been able to do. At first, I was like kind of a little bit lost with it because we're so used to traditional conferences. It became a little bit difficult to keep up with who went where. But with where college football is gone, I'm fine. Now let's get some of these other teams. Like, I like that James Madison's moved, around and trying to position themselves to be in a more competitive conference. Get some of these, what we would consider power G6 teams, get them up there so they can really compete.
Right. Totally agree with you.
But yeah, I almost feel like we're headed towards this another division of competition being created at some point. I really do feel that way, especially when they got this label. I mean, they've already kind of put a label on them. Now we just need to organize it and have a governing body over it. And here you go. Now we got one AAA.
Well, we're back to 1A and 1AA is really what we're back to. I mean, no matter, I don't care what you name it. As long as you have the G5s together with the P4s, or you combine the 1AAs and the 1As, you still have that disparity.
Right.
It's there. It's baked in. And it honestly may be fair and more productive to just own it and capitalize on it and have the 2 leagues. Because look, the 1AA, I watch the playoffs.
Oh, I do too. I love it. I look forward to it.
Yeah. So well, I'm not gonna beat that. The point is that's just the reality, and it may be fair to just separate them. And those G6s that use the regular ranking, they get in the top 24 at the end of the regular season. Well, you get to go to the CFP.
Definitely some food for thought.
Definitely
some food for thought.
Yeah.
Closing it out, you all. Last 2 slides. The fact of the matter is this, and I hope you all can see while I said at the beginning that the FBS playoff or Division I playoff has never solely been about a champion. It never has. The season has never been just solely about the regular season. It was polls. Then it became strength of schedule. Then you added in interleague play. And then you make sure you need to get 10 or better. You have to carve out. We got to make sure that the independent has an opportunity, and we got to make sure that the G6 has an opportunity. So long story short, it's never been solely about a champion.
And I think
And
that's
I'm going to
where we
close by
lost.
saying this. Huh?
And I think that's where we lost it when it moved away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But it's left
because
there.
everybody talked about whether you should be voted. Wouldn't you rather play for a championship rather than to be voted as a champion?
Yep.
Then you had split national championships. I think it was Georgia Tech and who else was it? Miami and Georgia Tech?
Colorado, I believe.
And 90, 91. So, I think that's where a lot of it came, and then a lot of these dream games. And even the game we had 40 years ago against Miami, that supposedly was a mythical national championship. So
Yeah, but
you had all those different terms and people adding on those terms to, kind of take away from what was going on and then not really, then going to somebody had to be crowned as that, what's the spirit of the season, and then the bowl games just didn't seem to be good enough anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And
I tell you what, at least in real time, you guys' game felt like we had a national championship, big dude.
Yeah, that was the first time.
There was nobody questioning. There was nobody questioning you guys winning it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just basically beat Miami. This is the first time that we're all comfortable laying our heads down at night with we have a national champion. You believe this? Because most other nights, I'm like Notre Dame or Alabama or Penn State, Ohio State would have beat them if they would have got put in the Orange Bowl or Sugar Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. But then the 94 team ended up losing out on it when they beat Oregon, and then Nebraska won. And Nebraska said, hey, we had a higher ranked game than them.
Mm-hmm.
So
we went backwards.
We
went backwards. We were going somewhere with your game, and then we went backwards.
Yes.
Yeah. So in closing, and we actually, this is why I said I wanted to go back to what you said, big dude. There's really no reason to do 16 then 24.
Right.
The reality is the trajectory is always already showing us it's going to 24. The bowls are going to continue to matter. And the G6s are going to continue to be squeezed out, at least the CFP. That's just kind of where we are. And this makes me think about, for those people who are naysaying, whether you like it or you don't, you got to learn to love it. And that's from the great Ric Flair.
I got you. But I guess my final question is do conference championships matter anymore? When it goes to 24, will conference championships matter?
If they choose to continue with the conference champion, you're not talking about like the Big 12 and at the end, whoever's done the best there, the champion. You're not talking about that. You're talking about a separate championship game.
I'm talking about both.
Okay. It could, from an analytics perspective, it could.
Mm-hmm.
I think your regular season standings will still matter. I don't know if you need the championship game.
Yeah, I'm with you. Honestly, I don't know if you need the champion in this model. I honestly don't think you need the championship game, but if you have it, it becomes another data point in my view. And so you got to ask yourselves, like particularly all the teams, all 10 leagues, and the independents, they got to ask themselves, if I win that championship, it helps me. If I lose it, it can hurt. So what do we want to do with it?
And if you don't have it anymore, what's the point of the conference?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Then that's where the interleague play becomes even more important, because then you can crunch your numbers, blah, 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 and you know who your league's champion is. So I would leave that up to them to answer that question, but it's a good one. But if you ask me, I would figure out a way to work it in, because people like the conference championship game. It's all about entertainment. But if you're going to go down this road, you might as well make a system that's going to work for the P4s and the G6s. This is kind of what I think would work. Of course, it can be tweaked, but this is what I think would work.
Interesting. Well, you definitely put a lot of time and effort into thinking about this. Now, I know we've had these conversations over the years. It'll be a real interesting follow to see where this thing goes. I think you're right, G. 24 teams is inevitable. I just something about it. Something because of the required spots. I'm gonna have
They're
a
talking
problem.
about
That Notre Dame. Yeah, and that Notre Dame one really sticks. I just don't understand how if we finish in I don't understand how that works. Why them? Why them?
Come on, because it's the money and the cachet of Notre Dame. Because I don't think UConn has that same deal, and they're
The
independent.
cachet. When is the last time the cachet? That cachet's been the last time they had that cachet. I think I was walking to school. I don't remember any cachet as an adult.
You're talking about pure football.
I'm talking about all of it.
When I say cachet, I'm talking about their media rights deal that they have. I'm talking about the patch money that they got. I'm like it or not, they're still rolling in, and they don't need the conference media deals right now. But
they're doing the business. They're doing the business. But again, I'll say, when's the last time they won anything in anything?
Well, that we can agree on. And then the G6, you can't call yourself the FBS and have an FBS playoff and just cripple more than half of your league. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
So now we can let the the listeners and viewers, I guess they can chop it up, ask questions, they can fight us about it or fight me about it since I came up with it. So I'm here for all of it.
No, excellent ways to look at it, because I think little by little we can take each piece and make a difference each year into the playoffs, and that's what it's supposed to be doing. And I think making the G6 and getting them to shine and getting them to the place where they're going to be at is going to be fine. But they want to belong. I think this will all be in real good spirit for sure.
Just three quick points. I will say battle for seeds, highway to the playoff, winner Wildness. The Chasing Rings crew. We're gonna reserve all our rights to those names. You got to say that because if somebody ends up liking it, they need to break us off.
There you go. Well, that will do it for this episode. Thank you, G, for your perspective on that. Certainly, I'm sure that we are going to continue to discuss this in its various forms as the season progresses, and certainly revert back to probably some of the things that we thought about tonight. But until next time, see ya later.